people start to trickle in. One of these days, I am going to get myself a newer computer that has a little bit more processing power so I can do crazy things like, open a second window, go to Twitter and tell people, here's the link to the chat that's going on right now. That's why I put them up in advance and just direct them to the channel. They find us eventually. Anyway, that was a very, very poor and boring opening to a live podcast. Our guest tonight is Paula Richey, who is the creator of Soulbound and soon to be Soulbound 2, and the proprietor, I'm guessing, of OtherRealm Studios, since that's your name at the top of the banner.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
I'm glad to do it. I am your host, R.J. Carter, author of The Destroyer Bully Pulpit, Continental Divide, and Monumental Terror, as well as a few other things. That's not what we're talking about tonight. Tonight, we are here to talk about creating comic books, something that I enjoy reading, I enjoy drawing on when I was under 6, but have never been able to create. So talking with the creators of these objects is a fascinating thing for me. Bianca, aloha. Always glad to have you here. Always the first one in, too. Glad that you keep up with us. So before I get into Soulbound 2, I looked at your page. You got a handful of projects out there. Exactly how long have you been making comics, and what other ones have we missed?
Well, Soulbound 1 is my first actual comic. I had a short story with in a superhero universe that I was working on, and then I decided to write that one as prose, and it will be coming out soon from Silver Empire Press as part of their Heroes Unleashed universe. We're nailing down precisely what the title should be right now, so I can't tell you yet.
Gotcha.
And
we'll be looking for that.
Well, I've been working on the Soulbound series for forever. But it was really only a couple years ago that I found my awesome artist, Mia, and I had her do a 5-page prologue for it, just to set up the world and to see how we work well together or not. And, she's really amazing, and I just love all her work. It's so fluid and full of life. So, also the other really great thing about Mia is that she communicates. So she's practically a legendary creature here. So after that 5 pages, I was flat broke, and I have been committed to staying out of debt. So I started going to Comic Cons and tabling and making and selling cosplay accessories. And so eventually I built up enough savings from doing that I was able to hire her for the whole comic. Bit by bit, like 5 pages at a time. But we got so close to the end of Soulbound 1, and right around then, Peter Samedi started his printer partnership program. And it was like, all of a sudden, everything fell together, and I could finally get the first issue done. So that's when I ran the Kickstarter for issue 1. And what month was that? I'm still a little bit lost. But yeah, so published that last year, and this year we've been working and saving up, going to more Comic Cons, selling a lot of goggles, and I've got built up the budget again. I've got Mia working on, she's on like the last few pages now. I can't wait to see what she's got. And we're going to have the whole comic probably done before the end of the campaign.
That's excellent. Because, I keep bringing this up when I do these live streams with crowdfunding creators. Uh, from the purchasing end, if you're kicking the money into it, our perspective is they're trying to raise money for the comic. If they don't make the money, the comic doesn't get made. No, and it sounds like a zero-sum game. Okay, well they didn't make the money, they're not going to make the comic. The fact is that as the writer, you've already made part of the comic and you've had to pay for it out of your own pocket, because artists don't work for free. I mean, if you happen to be a creator who is also, an artist and you're doing it yourself, that's another story, I guess. You can try to fund, your publication. But with a lot of the Kickstarters and Indiegogos, if you're the writer putting it out there, you're first trying to recoup money you've already spent. Is that correct?
Yeah. And well, first, the I run the Kickstarter so that I can have the funds to go through the printing program and get actual print copies. And that way I can take those with me to the Comic Cons and keep building up, keep, hang on, my brain left for a second. It's back now. Keep building up publicity for the series. And I've had some really great response to it. But I think that this is my idea. This is my story. And though I know that lots of other people will love it, once they read it, how are they going to know until it's in their hands? I'm the one who is responsible for the risk. And I can't do this to my artist where I ask her to work on spec. I can't do that to her. And I can't do it to my awesome letterer, Wes Loker, which reminds me I need to get back in touch with him. And I can't contract for work if I don't have the money in the bank to pay them with. I can't do that. And I don't want to owe people.
Exactly. And you've got to put some of your own money in first, so that you have something to show on the Kickstarter, so people know what they're trying to get in and back. So that cover work has already been paid for out of your own money.
Oh yeah.
All that sample artwork is paid for.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm working on building the new campaign on Kickstarter. So I'm not, doing it all at the last possible second, but at least I'm going to have
Sure.
a lot of art to go on it, and I just need to figure out how to write around it, and
Well, for those,
not spoil it too much.
Absolutely. For those who have not heard of Spellbound, and are seeing that this is a second issue, Soulbound. I'm sorry, I've got these other spell things in front of me. I did Wart the Wizard last night, and I've got a wizard's hat in front of me too.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I've got spellcaster stuff on the brain. Soulbound. I did write that right in the description. Please tell me, God, I did.
Yes.
Okay.
It's up there.
Okay. For those who are unfamiliar with Soulbound and the world that the characters live in, what do they need to know before getting into issue 2? And can they still get issue 1 before they do that?
Oh, yes. You can get issue 1. You can find all the information on my website, OtherRealmStudio.com. Let's see, you can see my art portfolio up front, and if you scroll down from there, you can see the cover for issue 1, a write-up on what it's about, and links to reviews that were done on it. And if you keep scrolling down, there's a slideshow of the first 8 pages and a little bit of extra art from the interior. So yeah, if you want to check it out, it's all right there.
It sounds like it's you hear soul, you hear bound. I'm thinking deals with the devil. I'm thinking that a lot because our next book is an anthology called The Devil You Know, and I'm getting all these short stories in of people's contracts with Satan and coffee with the devil and all kinds of meetings. So what is the binding of the soul that is happening here?
Okay, so the idea behind it is that um, there are things that can hurt your soul in your life. You know, we're made up of mental and physical and emotional and spiritual uh, parts as humans. And any of these can be injured. And what sort of thing is going to injure your soul and make you vulnerable? Say, vulnerable to curses, uh, vulnerable to, you know, certain dangers that you wouldn't find in the other areas of your existence. So this story starts out with Becca. She's a college student. She's doing really well, um, but suddenly her dad dies, and at the funeral she starts coming undone because her grief has caused a wound in her soul that's separating her from the world that she's in. Uh, there are events in the first one that I don't want to spoil.
Sure.
So she gets thrown into another realm of, yeah, where the symbol is much closer to the thing. So she's thrown there. She's vulnerable to curses. She's soul sick, which means if she can't find her way back home, her soul's going to wander back without the rest of her. She needs some sort of an anchor to hold her there until they can find a good way to bring her back home. And that's really going to be, yeah, the main problem over the arc of the entire series. Um,
Okay. So that's
yeah,
that's
I
something
did
then
not
that.
make this easy on myself. There's going to be 10 issues.
All right, that was going to be my next question. Was not so much how many issues, but the self-contained uh, app, process of the books. If they were each self-contained but kind of connected. It sounds here like there's this epic story that's being told in chapters, and we're buying the chapters through each issue.
Yes. So I do try to have a main problem that gets resolved in each issue so that it's not just left. But they do kind of rely a little bit on cliffhangers at the end to introduce what the problem for the next chapter is going to be.
Yeah, and you want to keep people coming back too.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I would love for people to read the whole arc and then sit with it for a minute and go back and read it again. I made this to be a very tight story that maybe you might pass over some significant details on the first read. And I wanted this to be really good for the reread as well.
okay, how many? Tell me about the physical feel of the book. I mean, as far as the page count, the paper that you choose and select, printing process, all of that stuff. Is it newsprint? Is it Baxter or whatever they use these days?
All right, so I went through Peter Smetty's printer partnership program at Alterna, and so it's just like an Alterna comic book. So there's, how many pages did I have in there? Yeah, I'm right at 32. No, I'm right at 28 pages of story, and I had and I gave Mia a page, and Wes got a page, and we filled it out the rest of the way. But so the Alterna comics, if you're familiar with those, they have the glossy cover, and inside they're newsprint. So
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar. We have a full page ad on the back of Midnight Mystery #1, so
oh,
I
nice.
have seen that. So what's the buy-in at for an issue? Is it the same as what you normally see, like a $25 buy-in to
Oh,
get
no,
the book and special tiers? Or okay, so it's
no. So my original thought was that I could price them the same as like Peter prices his books, but I can't do that because he has to get them printed and then they're shipped to me and then I have to ship them back out. So shipping just sort of ate into that. So I'm pricing each issue at $3, and I think I can stay at $3.
That's insanely low for a Kickstarter buy-in.
Oh yes, but I would also like to be in stores. There's not a whole lot of people looking at crowdfunds for comics, at least not for the story. And I kind of feel like I have to cast a wider net because my book is geared more toward a young adult female audience. And generally, who you see on the crowdfund platforms buying books, it's guys who have full-time jobs.
Yeah, yeah, definitely that. And what's more, it's the crowdfunding mentality again on the purchasing side. And again, when you're spending something like 25, 50, $100 is the exclusivity factor of it. Where you're like, I kicked in a lot of money for this, so I've got a really good product. This is my, my $25 copy of Cyberfrog, for an example.
Yeah,
I would be very upset if I walked into a store and saw the same book for $4.95 after that.
oh yeah. Well, I'm
But,
I'm
but you've
creating
got a
something
$3
that's meant to
buy-in,
be
so that's
read.
easy.
Yeah. So it's not meant to be a showpiece. It's not meant to be a trophy. Maybe eventually I'll get to compile it into like a really nice graphic novel, and maybe I'll do a Kickstarter for that for $25. But for a chapter of a larger story that's a floppy, I want to price it to be competitive with stores.
Sure. And we're used to, as comics fans, we're used to buying our chapters one at a time. I remember when Stephen King did The Green Mile, and he was selling it a chapter at a time, and people at the bookshelf in the bookstores were grousing. He's like, I can't believe I'm buying a chapter, and then I got to come back and buy the next chapter. I'm just looking at it like, welcome to my world. I've been doing this since I was 10.
Oh man. And the thing is with the ongoing titles in comic shops, um, where is the beginning? Where is the end? Do you have to go into other titles to finish the sub story that you were working on? I got so confused.
Well, it used to be. Uh, I'm going back in the day here again when I had to go to the comic shop in the snow, barefoot, uphill both ways.
Oh yeah.
Um, that
It's the
yeah, you had
90s
to
baggy
know.
pants.
Yes, it was. It was you'd get a book and you'd get a reference in a panel, and if you were really lucky, and usually you were, the editor would say, "Oh, you need to see this book from 3.5 years ago," because they kept track of that kind of stuff.
No, that's bad
Continuity
news.
was important, and now it's like, you know, I I pick up a book of masked vigilante staring out a window at the rain, and I'm like, well, this wasn't very exciting, and I go away for a couple of months, and I say, well, let's see what's happening now, and the rain has stopped, uh, and he's still. I was like, compress, dude. This is you've decompressed the story way too much. You're supposed to be able to tell this in an issue.
Oh goodness, I could not afford to do this. I'm telling my story as tight as I possibly can because I can't afford the extra art. How do they
Tell
do
me
this?
about it.
How do
Well,
they pay for like 5 or 6 or 20 pages of not moving the story?
well, that's because they're paid by a company, a corporation, and they get their money from licensing. So they've already somebody's already paid for the artist for you. You just have to turn in 22 pages of text.
Oh no.
So nice work if you can get it. And for the writer, it's sometimes thankless. You're the one who gets screamed at if the story is wrong. And when you go to conventions, and all your fellow workers who are artists are around you, uh, they're making money because they can draw, and you're sitting there saying, hey, tell me something and I'll write you a paragraph about it and I'll sign it for you.
Oh yeah, it's kind of awkward at cons now because I have my comic on the table and people come up and go, "Oh, you drew this," and I'm like, "No, I am an artist, but I hired the line art for this, but I did the colors."
Yeah.
And then
And
people
you
are
wrote it.
standing there like, that's confusing." Because I guess regular people are just like, oh, one person doesn't just do all this. No, goodness, no. If I hadn't hired Mia, I would still be drawing page one and erasing it and drawing it again.
Takes a village.
Oh yeah, it helps that I love everything that Mia does. Now me, I'm a little critical,
Of your
but
own stuff?
oh yeah, yeah. But she's really got a handle on sequential art, so everything looks. I'm telling you, it looks alive. It looks dynamic, um, and so expressive. And I just get so stuck.
You're very lucky when you get an artist like that to work with. But even being the writer, uh, and if the best you can do is stick figures, you still have to be something of an art director because you have a very unforgiving format to work with, which is the comic book, which is the published page of each sheet of paper is 4 pages, and it's going to come in 4 page increments. You can't make a 36, you can't make a 37 page comic book. Uh, it just doesn't work. So, so you have to write to that format and say, okay, when I get to the end of this text here, the page must turn, and I must now shift my story with the motion of the page turning to
Hmm.
deliver pacing and surprises and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm gradually getting better at it. I think. Um, you have to keep in mind that your odd pages and your even pages, like, um, it's better to do your reveal on your even page. Like you lead up with page one or three or five, and then they turn the page, and you want them to look at page two and not have like a filler page on the even number page and just skip it to the odd number page. And
Exactly.
I'm working on it.
I still have mental problems when I'm laying out, remembering that the even number page is on the left and not the other way because I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, no, one was actually all by itself on one side with nothing on the other side of it. And I have to do that when I'm laying out books because I put chapter headings. I always want my chapter headings to start on the odd numbered page. So I'm
Hmm.
pushing text down, and sometimes I have an even numbered blank page after something just so that I have a consistent layout. Uh, but I couldn't draw anything that was going in there, so I just have to know the flow of the action and communicate what I want done. If somebody was going to draw it for me. Now, you're doing this on Kickstarter, and we did talk a little bit before we went live with the cameras here. Uh, what drove you can you tell me more about what drove you to choose Kickstarter over Indiegogo, or was there a decision being made, or was it just I need to fund this and Kickstarter works just fine here? Let me sign up.
Well, I had backed a couple projects on Kickstarter previously, and it's very streamlined. They've been doing this for longer. It's made for a small project rather than trying to build an entire business, um, by selling products. So it's a good beginner platform too. It's very friendly. And also with Kickstarter, I've seen a lot of different comic projects. I haven't seen like just one genre of comics, and I'm trying to reach out to the young adult female artist or young adult female audience with my genre, which is it's a portal fantasy about a girl who ends up in another world. And personally, I just eat that up. And
It, it's funny because I've got two things in front of me here. Um, One of them is a back issue of Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld that I got at Half Price Books with a handful of quarter books. And
mm,
the other is one of the books I wrote, which is Alice's Journey Beyond the Moon, which is a purported sequel to the Alice trilogy by Lewis Carroll,
mhm.
both of which are young women who went through portals and ended up in fantasy lands.
Oh yeah, I love portals. They make anything possible. And so yeah, you get a lot. you get a lot more of a variety of projects and people more willing to give your book a shot if it has a more I don't I don't know how to call the art style. Is it like a more girly art style? It's much more detailed than the typical like Tumblr art, but it's very smooth. It looks sort of feminine to me. And I've gotten some pushback from guys who just glance at my book and think, "Oh, well, it's not for them." And
There is
well,
definitely a
they're
different
wrong.
style.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there definitely is a feminine style of art.
yeah,
Softer lines, I think.
yeah. Um, so yeah, the softer, more fluid lines on the art style, it fits in a little bit better with the audience that you're likely to find on Kickstarter. Now on Indiegogo, it's primarily the biggest comics projects on Indiegogo are Comicsgate, and a lot of the Comicsgate guys are really great, but they're like 99% guys, and they don't necessarily want um, they don't want the art style, or um, they don't want to start off a a series with the main character's personal tragedy and then she ends up in another world. That's possibly not their cup of tea. It might not be their genre. And I was listening to Clint Stoker on Sweetcast,
Yeah.
and he said that he wanted his wife to get into comics, and he was trying so hard to find a comic that she would like. And he listed off the books that she likes, and I said, "She's gonna love my comic." And so I found him on one platform or another and sent him a message and asked, "Hey, can I send your wife a free comic?" And he's like, "Well, that's weird, but go ahead." So, as it turned out, she loved it. And he's like, he was mostly interested in the fact that it came from the printing partnership program and, oh, this is newsprint. But she liked the story and she wanted the next chapter as soon as possible. And see, I know my audience.
Well, get shut
If
back
I
to the
can just
campaign.
find them.
Exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, I
And
hope she comes back. I hope she
it's
comes
funny.
back
There,
and
my wife is the
mhm,
same way. I have 22, 24 long white boxes here in this room with me, four of which are the desk upon which this laptop is sitting. Um, and I have one short box off to my side. That's my wife's comic book collection. And there's a distinct difference in the books that she has in here from
mhm,
all the other several thousand books off to my left here. Because what she gets are things like the old
mhm.
Disney princess books, the photo cover westerns and television shows, and that kind of thing, which don't appeal to me at all, but they strike a chord in her. So uh, there's there are gender differences in tastes in comic books. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of guys who don't like to read My Pretty Pony, and not a bunch of girls who don't like to read Sandman or Batman. But
I mean, yeah, and you know, a lot of girls love superhero books, and I love superheroes. I don't love every direction that the books are going in. I'm not going to collect all superheroes. I read a bunch of different genres, and some of them just aren't my thing, and some of them are. And that's one thing that I think that comics are lacking. There's It seems like superheroes are carrying all the weight in the mainstream comics market, and so much so that the big two, or possibly three, are are pushing to try and get more of the female audience in, trying to get more girls interested in the books, and they're not doing it by putting out a new line. I mean, they might put out one or two, maybe.
no, they're like, hey, do we want girls to read the superhero book? Well, make the superhero a girl. Don't make a girl superhero. Make the superhero a girl.
Yeah, like
Uh,
let's rip out Iron Man and replace him entirely with some other person. And that's going to tick off the old audience, and the new audience is not going to know what happened. And they might not ever show up. And there's stuff like turning like entire pages or possibly entire books of Batman into a romance novel. And um that's really awkward. Like I saw I saw on Twitter where there's this beach scene, Batman and Catwoman at the beach. It it looked well drawn and interesting, but this is awkward. It's like Batman is somebody I know professionally, and I don't want to see him at the beach. Like
yeah,
I know
he
what
doesn't
he's
fit
like
there.
in his life, and this is not a Batman book anymore.
I completely agree, and I couldn't read it anymore because again, he's
Yeah, what happened
watching.
to the hanging out on top of buildings like a gargoyle and striking terror into like the Joker and the Penguin and all that? What happened to that? If
He
I was
was too
going to
busy
pick up
getting
a
slapped
Batman
around
book,
by his
that was
daddy.
what I wanted.
Yeah, he was too busy getting slapped around by his daddy and being told what to do by his girlfriend. And like, do
I
you
mean,
remember the whole superstitious cowardly lot business? Or
oh yeah, that's in the old days. That's why he decided to become the Batman, because criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot. Wasn't that
exactly,
it?
I thought
Yeah,
so. Yeah, I'm out here to
and
scare people. I'm
and
not
then
out
it,
here to.
yeah, he's out there to scare him straight, man. So if I was going to pick
Oh,
up a Batman book, I would be expecting that, and I would be so weirded out to see the honeymoon on the beach stuff.
yes. While he's talking about dreams of his mother. Uh,
I didn't even look at the dialogue. There was so much of it.
yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. We're preaching to the choir here. Those days are gone. James Tinian Smith is or James Tinian the fourth. I don't know. I've got his name all wrong. The guy, the new guy, he's good. We have a story, and apparently it's
So
very
good.
hush-like.
Hmm.
That's my opinion because it looks like it's a 12-issue arc, and every issue is bringing in one of the major villains to play their role. And like last time we saw this was when they brought Jim Lee on uh,
Hmm.
into the company, and we got Hush out of it. So I think we're getting something like that again.
Oh,
Um,
that sounds good. That's how. I mean, I wouldn't be writing
yeah,
Batman, but if I was, I would do it like that. Like I'm doing my 10-issue arc, and each issue is a chapter, and I'm keeping those contained. And there's going to be an end. Yeah, I really like to have a solid beginning, an interesting middle, and an end that sticks the landing.
yeah, and stays true to the character. I mean, we're going way off topic here, but I see so many changes happening in DC Comics lately, in the Superman titles, in the Batman titles, that I can't help but think that there's got to be a reboot coming within the next 5 years to put things back to baseline. I mean, if I had $20 to buy DC Comics away from AT&T, I'd close shop for a year. I would find out whatever it
Uh-oh,
took to
you
get
disappeared for a
back as an
second.
editor. Start everything with number one. I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You just cut
But
out
I
for a
would
couple
I would take
seconds.
over. I'd put Denny O'Neil. Yeah, I'd get the old guys back, and I'd start over with number one, and it would be first night out for each of them. And I'm sorry, you wouldn't get Robin and Batman for 5 years, and it would be Dick Grayson, and he'd be 12, uh, and we'll work from there. Because otherwise, there's what, six Robins that he's gone through. Batman's got to be somewhere in his 50s. It
Yeah,
doesn't work anymore. We introduced time and we stuck to it, and it was always when I was a kid. It was always like Batman and Superman are 29 years old and they've always been at this for 5 years.
yeah. There's
We don't care how many things you've seen. They're 29. They've been at it for 5 years.
Yeah. I kind of like how Superman, not Superman. I liked how Spider-Man handled, the different characters and stuff. They just put them in different universes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you want more variety, then you can just go into the Spider-Verse and find some more people. And, that's a good way to get some variety without, wrecking your core character.
DC used to have that before they did the Crisis, and I understood why they did the Crisis. I think they were wrong when they did it. I think they eventually figured that out themselves too, because they thought that new readers couldn't keep up with the idea that there were multiple Earths, so they just kind of condensed it all down. But now they've had to go back and do the multiverse again, and by golly, they introduced it in the Flash and all the Arrow shows, and I think people ate it up. The idea that there were alternate timelines out there where things happen differently for people. I think readers were smarter than DC gave them credit for.
Oh yeah. Generally, people are. If they're reading and paying attention, they pay attention more than you think.
Yeah, I agree. So Soulbound number 2, you're starting that off on the 1st of March?
Yes. So.
All right. I didn't find a link to that specific one, so I did put the link just to the root level for your studios there. I'm sure that when it is available, there'll be a link right on that. People can jump into and get in. And I'll tell you what, for the price point, I'm getting in there tomorrow. I'm going to go get that last issue because I'm used to thinking, $25 buy-ins. And I was having interviews a year ago with folks like Tim Lim about sustainability. I was like, you can't do a $25 issue after issue and expect return because people can't afford that. But this is what people can afford, and I can't see that more and more people wouldn't be wanting to go this way and do the smaller book at the reason. You are buying in at less than a newsstand copy, so God bless you and Peter Samedi for making this happen.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I bet Peter appreciates it too. He is the nicest person I have ever met, virtually and all.
We've talked with him twice. We just had him on last week with Clint. Day before Clint found out he really was related to Bram Stoker. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I heard something about that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the rest of your videos. Well, I just had a hard time catching up.
Yeah, well, you don't have to catch up. It'll catch up to you. You just keep putting comic books out and keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to be a success at it. Soon as just let more people discover what your work is.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And we're going to try and help with that.
Well, thank you.
Paul, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you again. Yeah.
And if you get any other projects or anything you want to talk about, I mean, obviously the thing I responded to when you came back was you were on Twitter and you were talking. People want to write comic characters. Why don't you write the comic character that you're given rather than changing it to be the one you wanted it to be? If you want something else, just write something else. And I was like, yes, please bronze this one, put it up in every comic book office in the world.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is that you have to know what you want and then own that. Don't go off wishing that you were doing something else. You're a unique human being and you have a story, and don't go looking at what other people are doing. If you believe in something, well, believe in it already and own it and write it. And that's what I'm doing with Soulbound.
Words to live by.
Thank you.
Paula, thank you for the inspiration, and we appreciate having you on the show. Again, we'd love to have you back anytime you would like. You know how to find us on Twitter, and we will be watching you, so we'll probably be reaching out to you before you reach out to us.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on. This has been really fun. I'm kind of out here by myself, keeping my head down, doing my work, and it's really great to talk.
Well, everybody, the link to Paula's studio is in the description below. Minor shill time, if you do like the content on this channel and you'd like to help out, we have links to our t-shirt shop, and of course we have the link to the aforementioned Bulletproof Origins, our hardcover young adult superhero novel, which is on sale at Amazon from Critical Blast Publishing. Until next time, be signing off. Come back Saturday night. We actually have a night off from live streaming tomorrow night. Saturday night, we'll be talking with the folks at Kitchener Con about what they do to set up their convention and how they go about inviting the people they invite. We'll see you then.